To further explore some of the innovations on the horizon for Alzheimer's care, I'm really pleased to welcome my next guest, Dr. Maria Carrillo, the Chief Science Officer of the Alzheimer's Association. Dr. Carrillo, it's great to be with you. Look, I just want to get to the bottom line here. You raise a lot of money, you spend a lot of money, you see who's got the good ideas, who's got the bad ideas. What are the most promising innovations in Alzheimer's research, therapies, care that you see out there right now?
Well, great to be with you, and great to hear so much of this discussion. It's just fantastic. So thank you for that as well. You know, I'll say that, first of all, the emerging areas of research are on the horizon, and it is such an exciting time for the field. But a lot of this is actually thanks to bipartisan congressional leaders that include Senator Blunt, who I think you're going to have talking with you today, because all of this hinges on increases in funding, federal funding, for Alzheimer's and related dementia. And today we are, again, thanks to this leadership, we are at $3.2 billion. The federal commitment has been fantastic, and we hope to see that even grow in this coming finalized 22 budget. So thanks to Congress for focusing on this. A lot of the things that you've heard already in terms of advancements in other diseases have been made possible because of these federal investments. And of course, you've already talked about the accelerated approval by the FDA of this new treatment. That actually is going to create an incredible innovation. I know this is only one drug and it is an accelerated approval, and firsts are never perfect. They are quickly, though, followed by increased investment that we're already seeing happening in the field, including, of course, with other disease proteins that we're chasing, like tangles, like inflammation that you've just heard about. So there is so much out there. Now, I'll tell you that one of the biggest things that we also have besides treatment is certainly biomarkers. And you've heard also this discussed as well. One of the most key innovations is being able to detect Alzheimer's early in blood. That has been the holy grail for some time. And maybe if you would have asked me 5 years ago whether this was even possible and when, I would have said it's like a 10-year horizon or more. Wow. Because it's a bit difficult to measure tiny, tiny proteins many, many times removed from the original source, which is the brain. But today, with technology improving, just in general, they are on the horizon within the next few years, if not less. That will, again, innovate our field and enervate our field.
So that that blood test sounds so interesting and so around the corner. And then getting back to what Elias Zerhunis was talking about, essentially changes the way you can create cohorts. You've got just a bigger field to play with, I assume, data sets. Am I getting that right?
Yes, and it's really a combination of sort of clinical trials being faster and cheaper. Imagine when you don't have to pay perhaps a $5,000 PET scan to demonstrate that a person has amyloid in their brain or even tau in their brain, right? That's even more expensive. And instead you can do that with a blood test. That is incredible. And that is happening now. And certainly Eli Lilly is among one of those that is pursuing that. But other companies as well are pursuing this now as an experiment. And we hope that that becomes even stronger in the future. But the other side of this is the clinic. Imagine if in the clinic right now, we can't do that. But when we have even more therapies approved by the FDA, we will need a faster way to diagnose people. And that blood test is, again, that holy grail on the clinical side.
Last night, when we were up at the State of the Union fun around everything going on, I was listening for President Biden's comments about health. And in it, he said, ARPA, he says, to get there, I'm going to call on Congress to fund ARPA-H, the Advanced Research Project Agency for Health. It's based on DARPA, the Defense Department project that led to the internet, GPS, and so much more. ARPA-H will have a singular purpose to drive breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and more, a unity agenda for the nation. How big a step is that? How promising is it for those that are deeply invested in advances in Alzheimer's research?
So I think that, this is again another nod from our federal government acknowledging the challenges that we face in solving the Alzheimer's problem. We were, and I myself participated in a panel with Dr. Francis Collins when we were exploring this potential ARPA-H framework. And I think it is very important because it, again, gives us a different way to focus on the research. Kind of you heard a little bit from Dr. Zerhouni talk about the all of the pluses and minuses around NIH funding. The ARPA models really do away with a lot of that because they allow the freedom of focus and of putting together A teams that can really, through task force work, get down, roll up their sleeves and find out what needs to be accelerated today. And that's really going to be, I think, another important contributor. And we're looking forward to working potentially with that program.
I always love talking to Dr. Zerhouni and Francis Collins, who I've had a lot of opportunities to talk about, because you learn a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of science and the battles. But, I remember being in college when I read Thomas Kuhn's book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And when you listen to Dr. Zerhouni right now, his assertion is that there has been a blinding, dominant hypothesis that got in the way of other things. Do you agree with that? And what's the state of the field now? Is there more of a free market of compelling hypotheses that may drive new avenues of science? I don't even know if I'm asking the question correctly, but he was so focused on a hypothesis getting in the way, and he was also basically saying, and I'm going to put words in his mouth, that there was a kind of national narcissism in this, that maybe not intentional, that we didn't have open apertures to what was going on internationally. And so just from a healthy science perspective globally, where are we?
Well, I have to say that from my take and from where I sit, I don't see it exactly in that way. I think it's, I can see why you can draw that conclusion, but let me share with you my thoughts. First of all, amyloid plaques and tau tangles are the hallmark of Alzheimer's. They are. And then they were discovered by Dr. Alzheimer's, claimed as such. And for over 100 years, until we had better technology, they were what we knew about. And so it is clearly going to be the lowest hanging fruit combined, amyloid plaques and tau tangles. It just so happens that amyloid plaques outside of the neurons are a little bit easier to target. So you always go with sort of what is a little bit easier, and it became perhaps that catch word, right? Amyloid plaques. And so I can see why people would think that this is this dominant theory. If you're not following it, you're not going to get funded, or you're not going to get your treatments anywhere. Now, a part of that could have been also that for a decade and a half, if not more, 2 decades, the National Institutes of Health were funding Alzheimer's to $450 million a year only. You can imagine that when you're funding a disease or diseases with that small amount per year that only changed about 7 or 8 years ago, that would create an intense competition. And perhaps those theories that were more advanced in the process of scientific discovery were the ones that were getting propagated. That is why the Alzheimer's Association wrote and helped pass the bill, the National Alzheimer's Project Act, and why we're working so hard now with, again, Senator Blunt and other champions to get that funding to a place where it is commensurate with the need. And that is currently happening, $3.2 billion. That is more commensurate to our need. And today we are chasing, as you said, these different treatments, inflammation, metabolic function, brain cell health. We ourselves are getting in the game with the Alzheimer's Association's innovative Part the Cloud global funding program. We've got 60 clinical trials we're funding. Just again, only 2% of those are amyloid or tau. We are trying to chase that full spectrum of Alzheimer's because we understand that Alzheimer's is not just amyloid plaques and tau tangles today. It is a heterogeneous disease with multiple causes and multiple contributors. And to really cure this disease, we're going to have to go after all of them. We're going to have to measure Maria and what proteins are going wrong here, and we will be able to address each and every one of them uniquely with personalized medicine approach. That's our future.
You know, the interviews I love most, Maria, are the ones where I can feel through the screen someone's obsessions to win and to get ahead. I really appreciate it. We're taking questions from the audience. If we'll squeeze in a quick one for you, if you wouldn't mind. We have Monica Coleman. Monica?
I'm Monica Coleman, CEO and President at Inside Capitol Hill. And my question is, can these breakthroughs be applied to other forms of dementia and brain disorders?
Thank you, Monica.
That's a great question. Can these breakthroughs be applied? So certainly anti-amyloid treatments, let's just take that as an example, may be able to be applied to other dementias that actually also have amyloid plaques as contributors. One of the clear examples is Down syndrome. Now, here we have to pause and say, we need to learn how to crawl before we run. So right now, testing all of these things around monoclonal antibodies against amyloid plaques is key so that we can understand all of the safety issues that could surround them. And especially in considering, for example, let's just use Down syndrome as an example. Down syndrome individuals, although they do have an abundance of amyloid plaques in their brain that contribute potentially to dementia as they age, because now they're living longer and having amazing, fulfilling lives, we know that they also have increased cardiovascular risks. It's just a part of that syndrome. So we need to be careful because we can't today just apply amyloid, Aduhelm or other monoclonal antibodies against amyloid plaques to this other disease until we test it a little bit more carefully. But in the future, that is absolutely the case. We just need to proceed with caution and adequate testing.
Well, Dr. Maria Carrillo, Chief Science Officer of the Alzheimer's Association, I love this conversation. I'm obsessed with science broadly. I hope you'll come back when we're not only talking about Alzheimer's, but science in general, because I'm interested in the connectivity of research and health and science. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.